Hey friends, welcome to the Johnson City Living Podcast, where we learn about the people, places, events, and flavors that make Johnson City just a lovely place to live. I'm your host, Colin Johnson, with the Colin and Carly Group and Keller Williams Realty. If you're interested in buying or selling a home in the area, or if you're looking at investing in a rental property, give us a call at 423-930-8003, and we will look forward to helping you. Now, let's get to today's episode.
It is actually a beautiful January day here in Johnson City, Tennessee. Best place in the whole daggum world. And I am excited for you guys, our listeners, who I dearly care about and love, to meet my new friend, Polly Horne. Welcome to the podcast, Polly.
Thank you, Colin. It's great to be here.
Now, have you done tons of podcasts?
This is my first podcast.
Awesome.
Actually.
Well,
yeah.
This is my second, so we'll figure it out together. First things first. What do you love most about Johnson City?
The mountain.
The mountains. What do you love about the mountains?
They are my home and my heart.
Oh.
I am from here. So,
okay. Yeah. I love the mountains too. They're just great. I don't live in them like you do, but I live near them, and I'm a mountain adjacent. And but I love anywhere you drive, you get to see this beautiful landscape.
Well, I actually live in downtown Johnson City.
Okay, so you don't live in them.
I'm from Unicoi County. So
my
family is still out there, and I go and visit and let my dog run on the weekends.
Aww.
And yeah, so I get a little bit of both the mountain landscape and then the city. You know, I can walk to work and walk to downtown, which is great.
It is super great.
Yeah.
How's your family doing in Unicoi? Any damage from the flood?
They're fine. So we live in Limestone Cove, or just above Limestone Cove on Stone Mountain. So it's a high elevation. They have a spring, so they didn't, have damage to their well water, or the power wasn't, the power was cut off, but it didn't cut off the water supply. There's just a lot of trees down, but the flooding, didn't really reach up there.
Yeah, my wife Carly and I drove up there, and we went right through Limestone Cove because our son was up there helping cut trees and stuff, and I was just blown away. No pun intended, really, about just the number of trees that are it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if this is accurate. You can fact check me here, but I heard that Buncombe County in North Carolina lost 50% of its trees.
I would think that's probably accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, and driving 107 over to North Carolina, it's just, you go over the, state line and over the ridge there, and it's just, it's really horrifying. Yeah,
it's crazy. And then you get down in that next gorge. I don't know what that little town is, and it was just devastating.
Yeah.
It was, so we're still healing, and hopefully in Irwin and Unicoi got just devastated. So hopefully they'll rebuild and do well there. So, but we're not here to talk about that.
Well, I hope so. I mean, part of what I'm doing as an architect, it's not bad.
You are a principal architect and owner of PolyArch Architect and Design.
Yes, PolyArch Architecture and Design.
Okay.
And so you want me to talk a little bit about that's why I'm here, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So I am a licensed architect in Tennessee, North Carolina, and New York.
Mm-hmm.
I studied architecture at University of Tennessee in Knoxville.
Go Vols.
Yeah.
I went to UT. And I had a bunch of architecture student friends, and so
I graduated 2009.
Little
after you. And then I moved to New York City. So I received a large portion of my training as an architect in New York. I worked for a couple years in Knoxville with Goss Piercy Group, who Buzz Goss and Cherie Piercy. They were doing a lot of adaptive reuse, like loft conversions, like this kind of space renovations. So that was a good foundation for me. And then in New York, I worked at several firms, and also with craftspeople and artisans. So a custom metal fabricator.
Oh, that's cool.
And bronze sculptor, and Elizabeth Roberts Architects, Clement Hall's band, and right before I went on my own, Doug Romines, who's actually from Bristol. and went to UT and moved to New York City before I did. He's 15 years older than me.
Okay.
So he was a great teacher as well. So
That's
and then I ended up going off on my own. I was taking projects. 2016, I took my first independent project, but I was still working under Doug at that time. And then I got licensed in 2019 and decided to go off on my own right before the pandemic, which was interesting.
yeah.
But actually, a lot of changes happened in New York at that time because there was this huge exodus out of the city. So people were moving around and things were changing. And my focus really is high-end residential, but also that has been expanding into, middle and lower income affordable housing as well. But so that was a fruitful time, actually. So I have a community in the Catskills. I'm a Zen Buddhist student, and the monastery where the order that I practice within is the seat of that order is in the Catskills. So I have a lot of friends in the Catskills. So I was starting to take projects up there, which was great. And so that kind of helped my business flourish in 2020. And then, the pandemic kind of lingered on and we stayed and I got engaged. My husband's from Buffalo. And we met up there, Fire Lotus Temple in Brooklyn, which I lived really close to. So the temple is like the city center of the Zen Mountain Monastery.
Okay.
So, all that time in New York, I was practicing architecture, practicing Zen, and, met my husband. We got engaged, decided to move back down here in 2022. I finally convinced him. It took a while.
Not too long.
Eventually caved.
Yeah.
I was so homesick for the mountains, and I knew that I needed to be here. And I'm really glad that I made the shift. And so 2022, we moved down here in March, and I established PolyArch Johnson City. So PolyArch New York is still open. We're working remotely. And I have some team members up there. It's slowed down, obviously, since the move, but we're trying to find ways to, continue to take projects in New York while we're doing work here in Johnson City as well. And I'd love to branch into North Carolina. I know there's a lot of need there. So I feel like I'm well situated here. So the practice is, we focus mostly on residential, but there's also focus on smaller scale commercial, adaptive reuse, high performance construction, new construction, and renovations. Passive house standard is the standard that I basically work with to ensure that the building is functioning as efficiently as possible. And regardless if you're not going for certification, most people don't, right, to be passive house certified. But the principles are something that can be applied to any project.
Okay.
And interior design, landscape design, it's all kind of like the same animal. So, I'm just one person and I have a small team. I have a couple, 3 people here on my team and then one in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, that
was a lot.
It's
got a lot
it's
going
happening.
on.
Yeah, it's all happening. Yeah.
How did you choose to go from Knoxville to, there are a lot of places you could have gone. You chose New York City.
Yeah. So I had a mentor in college. He was a architecture professor, Mark Chimenti, and he helped write the plan of Nashville, which was a really important urban design project that really kind of put him out on the map. He also worked with the reconstruction of after Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana, and other things. But
it's bigger.
Yeah, he was
in land use.
He was more of an urban planner than an architect, but he was a licensed architect. Anyway, he was like, "You have to go to New York. even if it's just for a little while, you have to go and experience it. And, you know,
Because architecture there is beautiful, right?
it's, you know, the best in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, it is really beautiful.
Yeah.
Carly, my wife, loves going to New York, and I do too. We're just kind of like looking around all the cool stuff. And so it does open your mind to a ton of different ideas and experiences, which
Absolutely.
I think it's super cool how the Lord made our brains to just like, we'll see something or experience something, and then later on recall that for a certain project or a certain thing, but you kind of put your own spin on it. And so, you know, because like there's nothing new under the sun, but on the other side of it, like there's all this different, there's like different tweaks and different, I mean, it's just cool. I think architecture is amazing. I love what you guys do. If I'd pushed on, I would have had a degree in landscape architecture, and I just have a degree in horticulture.
Oh,
and so,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it would have been fun. And so I like that part of it. I like the structural part of it too. And it's a lot of fun. And so seeing houses being built all the time, it's cool. And so I think there are a lot of things that you guys do as architects that are behind the scenes that nobody sees. We all are like, oh, you made, you know, a building that looks like a pyramid, or the Shard in London, or whatever it might be that's super cool, right? And then, but there's a lot of tons of stuff where you have to stamp off on everything around town. Anything being built needs an architectural stamp a lot of times. So
yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about PolyArch, what you guys, like, what is like projects that you're working on, or other things that you'd like for, maybe our listeners are listening, they're like, oh, I would love to have an addition put on my house. I just don't know even where to start. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, all of my projects are private residences.
Okay.
And one is a new construction spa building, which I'm very excited about.
That sounds exciting.
So it's out in Unicoi County. So that, you know, is kind of like, you know, dreamy type stuff for me, because I kind of want that for myself, but it's good to offer that to others as well. And
just make a spare key when you're
absolutely.
Doing it. That's right.
And also renovation of a mid-century modern house on Boone Lake, which has been really fun. So it was, you know, built in the 60s and has tiny little windows, but like a beautiful lakeside view. So we blew open the end of the house and have really nice custom Marvin fiberglass high-performance windows there. So it's nice and insulated. But the view is spectacular, and it looks really good.
You're kind of like, what were you thinking building, you know, small windows on a lake, right? You know,
yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. So those are just a couple examples. And
so maybe, I forget where we're exactly at, but go ahead. Half performance windows.
Yeah, so, and I've done some consulting on Muncie across the street, which was great.
Nice.
They were looking at doing some work on the melting pot, and we were kind of doing some feasibility study for them, which was really nice to offer that to them.
Yeah, we love the melting pot. It's such a neat spot. Serving you so much fun.
Well, that building is really an important part of Johnson City's history. It's the original public library. Mm-hmm. So I hope over time Muncie will be able to take good care of the facade and do some restoration and really offer that to the community. And yeah, just like I did some work on a building that was built by Ken Ross, he's a well-known local architect. There's an eye clinic there that needed an interior renovation. Oh, okay. So, yeah, that was nice to work within a building that he's done and kind of have that connection. So, yeah, we're kind of like, you know, putting down our roots and making connections here. So I look forward to meeting new clients. If you could pick
like your next job, what would it be?
Ooh.
Locally, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to be involved in, I mean, that's a tough question. I love to be involved in reconstruction after the storm
Okay.
in any way.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd like to work on a new construction passive house.
So tell listeners, passive house. Like,
Yeah.
Explain it from top to bottom to us, because we don't know what passive house is.
Okay. So
Pass lots of houses, but we don't know what a passive house is.
yeah. So we're exceeding building code, and
Okay.
here that's not saying much, but in regards to energy performance and like the quality of the construction. So essentially you're creating a really well insulated, airtight building envelope.
Okay.
So, and then you have a high performance mechanical system and ventilation system
To bring in
with
fresh air because if it's super tight.
right. But the way that the air barriers and the weather barriers, you're using these smart barriers that have the ability to breathe, to allow vapor to pass through, but not air. And it also changes depending on the temperature of this, just depending on the season. So you're basically building a really well controlled thermal envelope for the building, and it allows for the mechanical system to be very efficient. It's said that you could heat and cool a house that is built with passive house standards with the energy it takes to run a hairdryer.
Oh, wow.
And there's other passive design approaches that you can implement early on when you're planning the layout of the building. So obviously you're not going to have like a huge wall of windows facing south unless that's intentional to heat
the house.
Thermal mass and let that. So you're working with the shape of the building, the extension of the overhangs, the way that it works with the land. But essentially, it's about optimizing or reducing the amount of energy that you need to heat and cool the house.
Is it cost prohibitive? It sounds like it might be.
Well, it depends what your priorities are. And, it's definitely more of an investment up front.
Mm-hmm.
But, there are benefits.
Long-term, you feel like it would pay for itself, where there's an ROI, right? Return on investment over time.
Right. But, like I said, you don't have to go all out with that. You can just implement certain principles here and there as your budget allows. So knowing the fundamentals of the science behind it is important, so you can use it when it's possible, when the budget allows.
Yeah. I think it is possible. I think there's sometimes where, it would make sense to say, okay, I'm going to invest here for sure, but this doesn't, I'm not going to see a return. And so, yeah. But I think a lot of it, an architect coming in, because you don't only look at the house plan, you're looking at which way do we face the house? Where's the sun coming from? Where's the energy coming from? What's the slope look like? Do we collect the water? I mean, you can do all kinds of different things to, you can put part of it underground, and that's going to be, energy efficient. And so I think having some forethought goes a long way. I think a lot of, developers are just like, how many houses can we stick on this piece?
Yeah. And that's the thing that I see, a challenge that I see the most here is like the vision of like what's possible is quite narrow. Like, a house doesn't have to look like that, like there's so many possibilities that you're just not seeing.
Polly, how are you going to change our architectural landscape here?
By doing it.
One house at a time. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, I think Carly, my wife, loves modern looking houses, and I am more of a traditionalist, and so, it's like finding a balance there would be interesting. So, talking about, okay, so we have a lot of traditional housing here. If you're a listener and you're like, oh, I would like to maybe modernize my house, could they engage with you and say, okay, yeah, we could maybe change these walls, do this kind of thing to the outside, the facade, and like kind of incorporate both? Are those options? Or
yeah, I mean, I don't know if this answers your question specifically, but modernizing doesn't necessarily mean making it look modern,
Right.
like whatever that means, contemporary or sleek, clean cut, minimal. There's a lot of cases where it's, you just need to be appropriate to the context, especially in historical buildings.
Right. For sure.
And it's also what the client wants, what's their vision. And ultimately I'm listening to you, the client, and, trying to respond in a sensitive way to give you the best design possible and also meet your needs and your vision.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a collaboration there.
For sure.
But yeah, I'm comfortable in both traditional and modern aesthetics. Yeah.
That's cool. Tell me about your most favorite project you worked on or did and that you're like, if somebody says, Polly, what are you proud of? This is the one.
So, and this could maybe be a good segue into the next chapter. But yeah, so when I moved to New York City, I moved there to work at Clement Hallsband, which is they have an office in Chelsea. And I was like fresh off the boat, like totally traumatized by the turnstiles and the subways and the apartment and all that.
I can
and so one of the first projects that I worked on in that office was for Zen Mountain Monastery. They were building a Sangha house or community house on the property. The former abbot had just died, and that was his vision to build that project for the community. So my current teacher, walked in the door, and I was like, oh, I love this guy. Like, he's wearing like hiking boots and like flannel and like jeans. And I just felt like I felt he's like a mountain person, And I was like,
that's
okay, my people. Oh my God, thank you. So anyway, I worked on that for, it was 2009. So like the recession had just hit, and I got laid off like 6 months after getting that job, which was totally scary.
Yeah.
But I loved working on that project. And now when I go there, I get to, use it and be in it and criticize all the things that they did. It was like a really, I don't know, it's a really special project.
Yeah.
And then later, so, okay, now I'm talking about architecture and Zen.
Yeah.
But so when I got laid off, I was super bummed. And I heard that they had a temple in Brooklyn. So I went there, and my teacher was giving a talk, and I was like, oh, this is it. Like I felt like an immediate connection, like I'd found my place. And, I started practicing there, and later he hired us. So I was working at Elizabeth Roberts Architects at that time. And he hired us to do a renovation of the temple. So I have this kind of like, sequence of, events that tie my Zen practice with my architectural practice, through that community. And I continue to develop. I mean, I don't work for them, but building this space at Studio Hum, where my architecture practices. Okay, so since moving, I was working out of the house over on Highland, but I wanted to really foster a community space. So I was practicing at the Appalachian Dharma Meditation Center. And I inquired about the space upstairs at 108 West 10th Avenue. And that's across the street from Open Door Coffee House.
Yeah. Our friend Ryan Fair is the
Ryan Fair's down there.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Dr. Amy Moody is on the first floor. She's a dentist.
Okay. Used to be Nunley or something. Nunley's dentist.
So Rebecca Nunley is my landlady.
Okay.
She owns the building.
Gotcha.
And the building is really interesting. It was designed by Abernathy architects. So Bo Abernathy. And I have the original
plan
set.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
And like in the hallway going upstairs, I have a rendering that Bo did of the building.
So he also did some houses. I sold an Abernathy house.
Oh, cool.
To
yeah.
him, and they still live there. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're on the top floor and it's a huge space, like 3,000 square feet. So
That's
it's like, I can't fill all that. But I took the president's suite, which is awesome, like little corner
Of course you
room.
should, right?
So all this wood paneling, it's very retro. I love it.
Yeah.
And beautiful mountain views. So I have my mountain connection. And
I think that view, right, of the mountains where the roads, just
Yeah,
like
it's
right
Buffalo
where
Mountain.
you are. Every time Carly and I are coming down, like if we're going to mountain, open doors or whatever, that view is awesome.
it's a beautiful view.
Like the mountains are just
Yeah.
boom. You got downtown. It's just beautiful.
And it's almost panoramic
Yeah.
on that floor because there's
Oh, yeah,
windows
that's
all
right, 'cause
around.
you're-
Yeah.
Because we have buildings only 2 stories tall around here.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's keep it that way. I mean, I'm cool with high rise. It's fine. Just not in my view.
Right.
But anyway, so there's the architecture practice. And so that floor, it's like, it's a square basically. And there's private offices all around the perimeter.
Mhm.
And in the center space, it's a big open space. So it seemed perfect for a Zendo. So that's what we have in the center is a meditation hall. And I also have a little tea room off to the side with tatami mats and a floor table. So I also practice Japanese tea ceremony, another thing
cool.
I picked up
Yeah.
in New York. And now I have a teacher at Sumi Matsuda who lives in Knoxville, and she comes from time to time. She's coming in April to the Philosopher's House to kind
Okay.
of get the word out about us. But she'll give lessons at Studio Hum as well.
That's pretty cool.
And I do monthly tea ceremony there as well. So Zendo tea ceremony, we have library and an art room for the community space.
That's super.
And then I have the architecture practice, and we have Brian Federico is a physical therapist. He's also on the floor.
Okay.
And we have 2 vacancies for either artists or healing arts folks. And I'm kind of like figuring out, I'm gathering names, but not trying to jump on anything right now. So if anybody's interested, they can email info@studiohum.org, and I can talk
Inquire
to you about
the
that.
space.
Yeah.
and being a
Mhm.
part of that.
Yeah.
For the Zen Do,
Yeah.
like dojo, is that short for?
Yeah. I mean, dojo, I think it's like a place of practice. The Zendo, it's specifically for meditations.
Is that open to anybody?
It's open to anybody. So we have a regular weekly schedule, Wednesday evenings and Sunday mornings. If you're new to Zen practice, I would recommend coming on Sunday morning, where we meet from 9 a.m. to noon. And I'll give beginning instruction in the style of meditation that we practice in the specific lineage of the Mountains and Rivers Order of Zen Buddhism. And so that, Sunday morning is, we do some liturgy, chanting, and with instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll do 2 periods of zazen. So they're each 25 minutes long with a walking meditation in between. And then I stream in a Dharma talk from Zen Mountain Monastery. So every Sunday, I'm basically following their Sunday schedule.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So they're doing the same thing up on Mount Tremper, and I stream in the talk as well. So people get access to true Dharma teachings, which I cannot offer. I am not a Zen teacher.
Yeah.
I am a student, but I am facilitating this group, and I'm very excited to figure out when my teacher Shugen Roshi is coming. But I believe he's coming this year. So
Cool.
yeah. So
That'll be neat.
yeah.
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 So
So
a lot going on, young lady.
I know it's a lot. So I'm just trying to streamline everything. So having the the Zen practice, it's just something that I do anyway. So I'm just opening it up to folks, and it helps me grow and learn in doing that. So Wednesday evenings, Sunday mornings, half day sits on Saturdays, once a month, and tea ceremony practice, and we're figuring out, I'm looking at some calligraphy lesson, flower arranging, ikebana, and other tea ceremony offerings later in the year from different teachers.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And tell our listeners where they can find out about what's happening and when.
Yeah. So Studio Hum you can check out the calendar on the Studio Hum website, which is studiohum.org.
Which is HUM.
Yeah, studiohum.org.
Okay.
And you can find the email address there where you can access me. And if you want to talk about design, interior design, architecture, you can contact me at, you can find our website at polyarch.studio or info@polyarch.studio, not .com. .studio.
Where is it? Is it .studio?
Yeah, and PolyArch is POLYARCH.
Your name and /architecture.
Well, my name's Margaret Paula Horne, technically, but I've gone by Polly since I was like, I don't remember ever being called Margaret. So, but Polly is spelled POLLY. So I don't know. My sister helped me figure out that name. PolyArch. I wasn't sure, but we decided on it. It's actually a word.
Yeah.
It means like a state of many rulers.
Yeah. Oh.
Like a monarch,
right. Yep.
a polyarch. There's some other meanings, but I like the way it sounds.
I like it. It works. And people will find you.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, anything I haven't talked to you about that you'd like to share? Because I think you covered a lot of bases.
Well, so there's one other thing.
Okay.
So as a architect here in Northeast Tennessee, I'm a member of the American Institute of Architects East Tennessee chapter.
Cool.
And I am joint chair of the Regional Resilience Subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of the Committee on the Environment of AIA East Tennessee.
Okay.
So Jay McCusker is the other joint chair. He works at Clark Nexon, which is, the top firm in Johnson City. They're much bigger than me. I think their other closest office is in Asheville.
Okay.
So they have many offices. But their Johnson City office, I think, is like really picking up, which is great. But so the two of us are chairing this subcommittee, Regional Resilience, that is basically responding to the storm damage and potential future damage from climate disasters, and working to engage with the public and local governments and the construction community to bolster resilience in our community through planning, through improving construction and education and outreach. So
better construction to weather the storm, kind of.
That and planning, infrastructure.
Right, to handle.
So, yeah, I mean, not one of us is an expert that knows all of these things, but the effort is to come together and raise awareness and work towards, designing towards a better future.
Sure.
We can make an impact on what is happening with our climate, and we have to. So I really, want to make a plug for the Regional Resilience Subcommittee. The American Institute of Architects will be holding tech sessions here, which is to train our local architects. We're going to have a kind of storm-related theme this year. And, we get continuing education credits from joining those things. But we're also trying to do happy hours and more of like public outreach events. So we're looking for a venue for that right now, but working on that.
Yeah. All right. What's gets you super fired up? Like you're just like, let's go. Or being a Zen meditation or
like excited about stuff?
Yeah.
Or
super
angry?
So.
The things that are positive.
Yes. Leave all the negative outside.
So positive. I mean, I love my dog.
What kind of dog do you have?
She's from the Elizabethan Pound, so we don't really know.
I love it.
But they said that she is a Schnauzer mix, and she's just...
We have a mini Schnauzer.
She's wonderful.
Oh my gosh,
I love her so much.
She gets me fired up too. So I think that's a great one. So yes. Well, cool. Well, thank you for sharing. I'm hoping that our listeners enjoyed the conversation. I hope they reach out to you for architectural stuff, what is that? I mean, we can just do a quick 1 minute. Like, what does that process look like? And I mean, if you want to throw some ideas out there, because I think people are like, oh, architects, they build big buildings. It's going to cost $1 million to engage with one.
Yeah.
Not the case, right?
Yeah.
You do little stuff. And
yeah. So, it's relative to the scale and the scope of the project.
Sure.
If we're looking at residential, I can kind of walk you through the process of what we ought, like the services, and then that can kind of help, you gauge how much time we're spending and stuff. So like schematic design is the first step. So if it's an existing building, like an existing house, we will go and measure the building by hand. I go and my team goes, and we spend like half a day measuring and taking those dimensions back and putting them into the computer, drawing the existing conditions plans. And those plans become the base plans for any, schematic design options that we create. Usually I offer 3 options as the first design meeting in schematic design. And this gives the owners like a chance to really explore like the possibilities. And those options are all based on an initial design meeting that we have where they're telling me what it is that they want. And I'm interpreting it basically and giving them a variety of ways to approach that. So, they can pick and choose from each option, and we can like stitch them together ultimately into one plan. And that becomes the schematic design plan. And that plan we can run by a general contractor to get a sense of the budget, just some budgetary numbers at that point for like, what are we working with here? So from there, we'll move into design development phase. I will hire a structural consultant if necessary, if we're doing, structural engineer. If you're doing high performance, I recommend a mechanical engineer, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. In New York, you always hire structural and mechanical, electrical, plumbing, if you're doing that type of work. Here, the GC does, and it's kind of a fine line, like,
depends on the
usually
person they get.
If it's structural work, I always have a structural engineer. If it's mechanical work, plumbing, usually the general contractor will get them to work with that. So, but we're integrating, those consultants at the beginning of design development phase, and we are creating, plans, elevations, sections, key interior elevations, and a draft finish schedule. And that's basically design development phase.
Gotcha.
If you want to go further into like, everything is like selected and designed and integrated, specified, then we'll do construction documents phase. And that is a full construction document set with everything specified, the windows, the doors, the light fixtures, the doorknobs,
light switches,
the door stops, the flooring, everything. That's a construction document set, and that is the contract set for the contractor.
Sure.
Right. So you can bid that out to different contractors, or you can have a contractor from the start, and it's more of like a design build approach.
Right.
And we can develop the drawing set as much as you want. And then we'll do permitting as necessary, and then construction administration if desired. So during construction, the highest level of service usually is like every other week visiting the site. Oftentimes it's just as needed. Or like, sometimes there's like pauses in construction due to weather or whatever. So that's got some flex with it. But that's basically a full service architectural agreement. But like within that, we can offer a varying level of services.
Yeah, gotcha. That's cool. And I think it'll be interesting to see if some of our listeners reach out to you, because I'd love for them to, and I'd love for you to continue to flourish. And we can come across lots of people all the time, so we'll definitely keep your contact handy and pass it out. And thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having
getting to
me.
know you and what you're doing, and I'm sure I'll see you over at the Dharma Center when I go see Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
And so thank you guys for listening. Thanks for hanging out with Polly and I. Till next time, I'm Colin Johnson with the Colin and Carly Group and Keller Williams Realty. If you want to make a move here and buy a residential house and have Polly fix it up, she can design it all up for you, and I would love to help you make Johnson City home. Or east, towards the mountains, it could be in Unicoi or Irwin that way too. Or we go all over East Tennessee, so just reach out to us. We'd love to help. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you.